Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. DOS here. Now, I know I'm a little late to the party with this topic and information. However, I wanted to wait a bit to see if any other information would come out, and I wanted to get a full, concise list for this. If you don't know what I'm talking about the Q&A that happened on the Five Nights at Freddy's Discord server. This happened the other week. However, it was not recorded. The person that was interviewing them, their recording software ended up bugging out, so the recording was completely lost. However, the person who interviewed ended up putting a whole list of the topics that he can remember talking about and the answers that were given. And I'm going to go ahead and go through it with you right here, right now. I do want to thank FNAF for Dead by Daylight and again, Doctor Who for DBD for posting the screenshots and stuff like that. I am in the FNAF Discord server, so I can just pull this up myself. But for people who aren't in the server or don't want to join the server, it's greatly appreciated for people like them to be posting this. So first off, Adam, the person who was heading the interview, wanted to post this because there's been a lot of misinformation being spread. And I've actually have seen that misinformation firsthand in my streams. I've had people come in saying that information they saw from another YouTuber, stuff like that, was concrete when it wasn't. So I'm also here to set the record straight for y'all. So he states here that the interview started with some easier questions, such as personal favorite DVD characters of each member of the team. One member mentioned Chucky, another mentioned Nicolas Cage. Makes sense. Probably some of the most fun characters that they could work on and make. There was a question about whether Glitchtrap was canonically the same as the version from Help Wanted. And it was clarified that he's not the original, but a copy created by the entity, a copy made flesh. So if you read the actual lore little tidbits in his cosmetics for Glitchtrap, you can see that this Glitchtrap that exists is not something that is like a real manifestation. It is something that is created by the entity. And if you pay attention inside Glitchtrap's mouth, you can actually see a little bit of like fog and smoke. When discussing more skins for Springtrap, a blighted skin was mentioned as an example. So this was the misinformation that was in my stream chat. Somebody was 100% certain that a blighted skin was coming and that it was confirmed by another YouTuber, yada, yada, yada. However, as it says from this interviewer, that is not confirmed. The only thing that was confirmed is that more skins are on the way, including one that happens to be Eric Pope's favorite. He tried pressing more for this, but didn't want to pry too hard on until the end anyway. So, as I said, there are people in my chat that were saying like, oh yeah, he's getting blighted skin. It was confirmed. It's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. They mentioned that the Halloween event is when killers and survivors typically get blighted skins. It's a possibility. It's 100% a possibility that we're going to get a blighted cosmetic. And I definitely think Scott would be okay with that because definitely fits Afton's character. I think Afton would absolutely take the opportunity to get the blighted serum to improve himself. However, that doesn't confirm that he's getting a skin. As for the Eric Pope favorite, I've had this theory, and Paulie mentioned it in his video name dropping me. Thank you, Paulie. That I think this might be Springtrap. Now, again, I've had tons and tons of people argue over the past like few months, being like, "Oh, Glitchtrap is an Afton, Springtrap is an Afton. It's the mimic, yada yada yada." Well, we got Glitchtrap in the game. And there's nothing to say that we can't get Springtrap. And again, it's all theories. There's no confirmation that the mimic is Springtrap. So my money's on that we're getting a Springtrap skin, and that might be the Eric Pope favorite. We'll have to see. But it continues on by saying Scott Cawthon was confirmed to be involved more than most people behavior has worked with. From start to finish, personally approving every visual and writing decision. That includes details like Springtrap's missing torso color and button and Freddy's red bow tie. So Scott is somebody who is a game developer himself. He understands what goes into this kind of stuff. He's very hands-on. So obviously he's going to be at his full like involvement with behavior because he wants to make sure his baby, his IP is presented in a way that makes sense and is faithful. And I've seen a lot of people complain about Springtrap's design in Dead by Daylight. I've seen people complain that he's missing his little like extra torso piece. He's missing his buttons and stuff. But again, Scott okayed all these design decisions. So if Scott likes it, I think that's what needs to be best for us. They also say that Foxy, although absent in all forms except for a plushie, hasn't been forgotten. The team reiterated that everything has a reason. So I've been seeing people talk about this a lot, of how we're going to get a Foxy skin for a killer. I don't think it's going to be OG Foxy. I've said this again and again and again to multiple people. However, it seems people are very much set that it's going to be just an original Foxy cosmetic. I don't think so. I think it's going to be either a Nightmare Foxy or a Grim Foxy or something like that. I just don't think Scott wants multiple iterations of Foxy on the same map, which is why we don't have Foxy in Pirates Cove. Again, we're gonna have to wait and see. My hope is we're getting a rift. However, another point in here has led people to believe we're not, but I have a little counterpoint of my own. They continue on saying the survivor wasn't added because behavior wanted the experience to feel like you were the player from the original FNAF games. Your survivor choice is who you are. The idea of possibly adding Josh Hutcherson as Mike Schmidt was brought up as something that could happen in the future, but nothing is currently planned or confirmed. I know this was a huge point of contention. I mean, my video talking about it still was getting pretty good traction. At the end of the day, it's night. But I know a lot of people wanted a survivor for this chapter, and obviously, like for me playing it right now, a survivor in this chapter would have been nice because it would have split queue times. I wouldn't have to wait 10 minutes minimum to get a killer game. But again, like, what do you want to sacrifice? Do we either get like a survivor and a killer, maybe not a map, or maybe a map that doesn't have as much love and care put into it, or we get a killer that's really fun to play and a map that's pretty damn cool? Like, you have to pick and choose. This next point is something that I am kind of passionate about. There were also talks about a Yellow Rabbit variant with the mask. While it's something they'd like to do, technical limitations such as how licensed skins are currently locked customization-wise mean it would require some adjustments/overhauls if it's ever considered. So that may not be likely to happen. So this is something that's been a complaint for me. As much as I love Matthew Lillard, I love that man to death, I think the skin looks really goddamn weird with having his little human body with the big puffy mascot suit. When they first showed it at the PAX panel, I thought maybe that was just the lobby intro and in match who's going to have his helmet on, but he doesn't. I really hope that they figure out a goddamn way to include this. Hell, if I have to buy the skin again, I will. Or if I have to purchase the headpiece, I'll do it because I want the headpiece. Like, I like Matthew Lillard, but I think the design for the Yellow Rabbit looks so good with the head in the movie that I would want it in the game. And hell, I would love it if you have the headpiece, it has the modulation filter to Matthew's voice. I would love that. It would instantly become my top one skin for Springtrap if it had that. Because right now, it's like, sadly, it's my least favorite skin out of all of them because of that fact. Like, my favorite one is Glitch Trap because of the animations and the differences for it. Whereas Matthew Lillard is sadly last place because of the lack of the helmet. So who knows? Maybe they can do a Fortnite and give us edit styles. We'll have to see. Someone asked if the entity likes Springtrap. The team explained that human emotions don't really apply to the entity. And then it was asked if it seems like the entity just sees all the killers as tools of convenience, to which they agreed. It was one good explanation for it. So I've actually seen evidence in game that the entity is taking the piss out of Afton, because if you read the descriptions of his clown trap skin, it shows that the outfit was forced onto him, and no matter how much he wipes away the makeup and stuff, it'll come back, it'll stay on. So I definitely think the entity is making fun of Afton at the very least, because the entity definitely has favorites. Like, Ghost Trap is one of Entity's favorite killers. It's why he has this weird little tassel thing floating. It's a little like symbol. But I do like that there's little bits and pieces in different killers lore that shows like, oh, this one's more favored by the entity than others. This next point is very, very well known if you've been paying attention to anything regarding this release, but Matthew Lillard's involvement wasn't planned from the start. When discussing how that all came about, it was highlighted that Scott gave him a call later on in the process to ask if he'd be interested, and he absolutely was, and the rest was history from that point. This was something that Matthew Cote had stated in an interview back when the PAX panel happened, the fact that it was Scott's idea to have Matthew Lillard be a part of this, and that's how they got the ability to use his likeness and the voice and stuff. So kudos to Scott for that. There's no confirmation of any plans at this point for any FNAF charms Dead by Daylight. So this is the point I was talking about as to why people believe there's not a battle pass coming for FNAF. So the wording of this is very specific. It says there's no confirmation of any plans at this point for any FNAF charms. Maybe it's me huffing tons of copium, but I'm kind of thinking, well, maybe they already made it. So there's not any plans to create ones now because they've already made them. Who knows? They also could be just saying this to get people to not think that there's a battle pass, even though there could be. I don't know. I'm huffing major copium because we got the Castlevania battle pass. We've had a Saw battle pass before. We've had licensed battle passes. And I would love a FNAF one. It'd be sick. It'd be cool. There'd be so many like nice goodies in there. So many cosmetics that could be in it. I think it's something that would be greatly appreciated and honestly wanted. Then we have, when talking about the possibility of other FNAF inspired maps, like Fazbear Frights from FNAF 3, the team said they're really happy with the one they've created. While the original FNAF game and movie served as inspiration, the final design is meant to be the entity's interpretation of that world. So that's a comment to the people who are just like, what's up with all this weird like meat stuff? Why doesn't it look like the game? Stuff like that. For those of you who don't know, in the lore, all the maps that we have are not actually taken from the places that the survivors and killers are taken. They are just recreations from the entity. It's taking it from the memories of the characters, but it doesn't understand a lot of human things. Why there's always lockers, it's why there's always generators. And so the FNAF map is no different. One developer said that they'd love to see an extract of the Pizzaplex as a next FNAF DBD map. So I would love a Pizzaplex. That's probably one of my favorite things from Security Breach is the Pizzaplex itself. I know indoor maps is not the best for Dead by Daylight. It's honestly some of the harder maps for some killers and survivors in general. But I would really enjoy Pizzaplex. Now we do have some other FNAF things, but moving forward, this is more so general questions. So Behavior were also asked what originally inspired them to create Dead by Daylight. One answer mentioned a playable concept made by someone on the team where someone has to complete puzzles and escape while being hunted by another. This led to the idea of bringing all the horror movie killers together into one game. Before that, Behavior primarily made games for other studios, not their own. Someone else asked whether the Huntress was based on any real-world folk tales. Behavior confirmed she's entirely original. SCP was also brought up, and it was confirmed that it will never cross over with Dead by Daylight due to its specific Creative Commons license. I know it's a big hit for a lot of people, including myself, because I like quite a bit of SCP. But the way that SCP works is there's not one person that owns the copyright for SCP. It's just a general like creepypasta type of thing, and it wouldn't work for them to bring something in because it would just cause so many issues. What if someone retroactively files a copyright for one of the SCPs that Dead by Daylight decides to have in their game, and then now like there's this whole legal issue and stuff? It's too much of a risk for them, and so I understand why there's no chance of it coming, but I would have loved to have some SCP stuff in DBD. The team were asked about their familiarity with FNAF before the crossover. Some said they knew it personally, others mentioned they lived it vicariously through their children when asked about their favorite animatronics. A few were mentioned, including Foxy. So this is something that's very obvious. A lot of the people who work at Behavior, there's a good mix. There's people who are like the older generation. There's now people who are in the younger generation. Obviously, the younger generation are going to be way more familiar with FNAF, while the older generation aren't, like Matthew Cote, stuff like that. Eric Pope, because I think Eric Pope's kid is the one that likes FNAF, and he doesn't really know that much about it. But there is a very well-known quote of a previous developer when he was asked on his stream, being like, hey, what do you think of Springtrap or FNAF being a possibility for Dead by Daylight? And he's like, I have no idea. I don't even know what that is. Is it some weird kids game, stuff like that? If I can get the clip, I'll put it here.
Recent hype with Springtrap. I don't know what the fuck Springtrap is. Because I'm not 10.
But it is hilarious. I know probably like a good portion of the team don't really know anything about FNAF. So, but Foxy has always been a fan favorite from the original game. Foxy is my favorite, 100%. So it's nice to see that. Another question that came up was asking the team who would be chosen as the killer if not Springtrap, and the team agreed that it would be So I know this one has a lot of people kind of up in arms because a lot of people don't want the Mimic to be a killer. And I've been seeing some weird discourse between the most recent Secret of the Mimic game. Again, I have not finished it. I was supposed to continue playing it with my buddy this past Thursday, but technical issues disallowed that. But I know Markiplier just finished it, and I know he made a comment of how he misses old FNAF and stuff like that. I know a lot of people have been hopping on that train, but I think the Mimic makes pretty damn good sense to be a killer in Dead by Daylight. I know a lot of people want Ennard, but let's be real here. Ennard has in his original form, Ennard has only appeared in one mainline game, I should say. Obviously, I know he's Molten Freddy, and then the assumption is he's the Blob in Security Breach. But at this point in time, the Mimic is much more iconic than Ennard would be. I wouldn't be angry about it. I mean, for me, I'm the type of FNAF fan where I'm happy to have the media included at all. Like, as long as it's fun and it's well done, I'm fine with it. And then it says here they went into discussing indie icons or generally iconic characters that the team would personally to see in Dead by Daylight. Between them, they included Fatal Frame, which would love that. I would love that in Dead by Daylight. Inscription, which I'm actually not familiar with. If you are, let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to learn more. Tekken, that's a weird one. It'd be weird to have a fighting game character in Dead by Daylight, but I guess it would make sense if it was a Survivor. Faith, which I'm also not familiar with. Sound off in the comments if Faith is something you're familiar with. And Jaws, happy 5th anniversary. Jaws has been something that's been talked about for years, being in Dead by Daylight. It's always been like a weird thing. I know Behavior have wanted to do a underwater map for a while, so who knows, maybe a Jaws chapter can come out in the future with an underwater map. We'll have to see. Then on the subject of the Yellow Rabbit's unique voice lines for Nicolas Cage, Eric Pope admitted that some of the team didn't even realize those were in the game until the update went live, and others discovered it for themselves. Eric liked to imagine that it was done as a nice surprise for him. When asked if more unique character-specific interaction lines might appear in the future, it seemed to be likely. Behavior are actively exploring new ideas for voice content. So for those of you who aren't aware, the Matthew Lillard skin specifically has lines against Nicolas Cage, which is cool. There's actually quite a lot of them. He tends to like maybe mock Cage sometimes, or he ends up saying like he's a big fan and stuff like that. It's honestly really cool, and I personally love seeing these interactions between different characters. We've gotten a few, like with Wesker and Chris, you have a voice line with Nemesis against Star's agents. You have voice lines, stuff like that. But having like the Matthew Lillard skin reference Nicolas Cage, I think is super fun, and I hope they continue to do this again and again and again. And maybe even if they can get these voice talents to come back and record more lines, that'd be sick. Because imagine Cage having lines specifically for the Yellow Rabbit and him saying like, "Oh, you look like somebody that's a coworker of mine," stuff like that. Like, that'd be super cool. This next one makes me a bit sad. So someone asked if there are any Easter eggs left undiscovered in the FNAF map, including ones hidden out of bounds. The team felt confident that players had found them all. This makes me kind of sad because one thing that I've been curious about and wondering about is where the fuck is Golden Freddy? You would think that Golden Freddy would be included in this, considering it was there in the first game, and Golden Freddy is like the foil to Springtrap. So why isn't Golden Freddy there? It does make me sad that we've discovered all the Easter eggs regarding the map. I guess it makes sense. I combed that map like crazy during the PTB. I couldn't find anything new, so it is a damn shame. Then when asked if they'd want to do another FNAF chapter and introduce the Mimic, they obviously couldn't confirm anything, but they said they'd absolutely love to, and it's very likely to happen. I think this is kind of a no-brainer. I think FNAF is probably the best-selling chapter they've ever released. It's probably the most success that the game has had in a very, very, very long time. So it makes sense they would do a part 2. I don't see them doing it within a year like they did with Resident Evil. But I think probably by the latest 2028, we'll probably get another FNAF chapter. And I'm all for it. I'm all for it. And then to finish it off, with less than 1 minute to spare, they asked if we could get a hint of the upcoming Springtrap skin. Then with a quick no from Matthew Cote, and a quick I tried my best from the host, that brought the Q&A to an end. I think that for the most part, they asked a lot of really good questions. There were some really dumb ones, like what originally inspired them was great DBD, but good information. It's basically all but confirmed that we're getting a part 2 to the FNAF chapter. It's been confirmed we are getting more FNAF skins, more skins for Springtrap at the very least. What those are, we'll have to wait and see. I'm still banking on us getting a Burn Trap skin. We are most likely going to get a Blight skin, but it's not confirmed. But overall, I'm super excited. Let me know what you would have asked the devs down in the comments below. For me personally, I probably would have asked if there was any indication of adding retroactively like the FNAF, like Freddy Boop or Golden Freddy, stuff along those lines, or if there would be more cosmetics for survivors regarding Five Nights at Freddy's. That's what I probably would have asked, but that's everything that he could remember from this interview, Mr. Adam. But that's going to be it for me today. By the time you're watching this, I'm actually not going to be here. I'm going to be at Anime Expo. So if any of y'all are down at the LA Convention Center and you're at Anime Expo and you see me around, by all means, say hi. I'll be walking around, going to panels, stuff like that. I'll be there all 4 days. So if by some chance anyone watching is at Anime Expo, feel free to say hi. But as always, I hope you all have a good morning, afternoon, and evening. Goodbye, everyone.